Rob Reiner, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for doing this. This is exciting for me.
My pleasure.
So how did you get involved with The Princess Bride? Because you do a little research on this and you realize that Robert Redford had thought of directing it, John Boorman, Francois Truffaut was going to direct this?
Yes. I was a huge William Goldman fan. I had read everything that he had written from his, Temple of Gold, My Turn to Curtsy, Your Turn to Bow, Boys and Girls Together. And my father had done a Broadway show, and Bill Goldman, who wrote this great book, Adventures in the Screen Trade, who also wrote a book about a season on Broadway called The Season. And one of the chapters was devoted to this play that my dad had done. And he had just finished writing The Princess Bride. He gave it to my dad and said, what do you think about this? Maybe you could make a movie out of this. My dad, knowing that I was a fan, he was doing something else at the time. He said, you're a fan of Bill Goldman's. Why don't you read this book? I read this. I was a young guy. I read the book and I was like blown away. I mean, it was like, when you read something and you feel like somebody's in your head and if you could write, this is what you would write. I felt that way when I read it. Years go by, I've done All in the Family, I've done other things, and now I'm making movies, and I've made a couple of movies by then, and I'm thinking, they make movies out of books, don't they? And I said, my favorite book of all time, Princess Bride. So I then do what you did. I found out Francois Truffaut, Redford.
Norman Jewison, too.
All these people had tried to make it, and I said, there's no chance I'm going to be able to get this. And I basically, called up, had, somebody contact William Goldman. He looked at Spinal Tap, which, was my first movie. I was cutting the second movie I was making, which was The Sure Thing. I sent him a rough cut, and he agreed to meet with me based on that. So I went and met with him, and it was one of the most nerve-wracking meetings, because I'm meeting my idol.
Your hero.
My hero. I'm sitting in his apartment with my partner, Andy Scheinman, and we're sitting there and we're talking to him, and I'm telling him what I think should be done with this after all these other people had tried, And
what are you trying? So you're trying to get him to agree to sell you the rights to let you make the movie?
I'm trying to get him to agree to let me make the movie. When he opens the door to his apartment, the first thing out of his mouth is he says, "The Princess Bride is my favorite thing I've ever written. I want it on my tombstone."
This is a guy who wrote Butch Cassidy and
Sundance Kid and Marathon Man, All the Presidents, all these things. And I'm thinking, and he basically looked at me like, what are you going to do with it? Did
you have a particular pitch to him? What did you...
Yes, my main pitch was I wanted to adhere more closely to the book. I mean, a lot of people had taken it a lot of different directions, but I thought what was great about it was what was in that book. That's the thing that got me so excited.
This is an ensemble cast. Any challenges putting the cast together?
Yes, there were tremendous challenges, because I'm not exaggerating about this. There were literally only 3 people, one person for each of these 3 parts. For Buttercup, Robin Wright; for Wesley, Carrie Elwes; and for Fezzik, André the Giant. There was no second choice for any of these people. And it's not like when you're casting the part of a giant, you can throw a stick and hit 50 giants.
Right.
I mean, it's a tough part to cast. So if we don't get André the Giant, I don't make the movie.
And you met with him.
I met with him. I was trying to track him down, and he's all over the world wrestling. And Andy Scheinman and I had just gone to Ireland to scout the Cliffs of Insanity, the Cliffs of Moher. We get back to our hotel in London. There's a message for us saying, you can meet André the Giant. He's going to be in Paris tomorrow, and he'll be there, and you can go right back to the airport, fly to Paris, check into the hotel. The next day, we go out for a little bit. We come back to the hotel. The guy behind the desk says, "There's a man waiting for you at the bar." We walk in, and there's a landmass sitting at a bar stool, just like it's described in the book. And I met with him, and I had him audition, and I couldn't understand a word he said. And I thought, what the heck? But he's the only guy I could use. So I taped his part, and I sent him a cassette. And he listened to it over and over, and he got it, and he got it great. And I didn't have to loop him at all. I didn't have to replace his voice.
What about Robin Wright, who is now a gigantic star? What about Robin Wright told you that she had to play Buttercup?
Well, in the book and in the screenplay, Buttercup is described as the most beautiful girl in all the land. So you start with that.
Right.
You have to get an incredibly beautiful girl who's 21 years old.
There are a couple of those in Hollywood.
Yes,
I just want to point that out.
But they are, but they have to have a really good English accent, because I wanted to have that kind of fairy tale, King Arthur kind of feel to it. And so you had to get a stunningly beautiful girl at age 20 who had this flawless English accent. And I couldn't find, I went to England and I found some, really good actresses, but they didn't have that quality.
So you only arrived at Robin Wright after a search?
Yes, we searched like crazy, and we were ready to go to shoot. We were like, a few weeks from shooting, and she came in, and I went, oh my God, that's it, that was it.
I'm sure you've heard this. Wallace Shawn, who has a very memorable role in the movie, says now that he was terrified every day thinking that you were going to fire him because he had heard that you wanted Danny DeVito for that part, and DeVito was, of course, and is a friend of yours.
Yeah, well, DeVito turned it down, or he wasn't available. I don't remember. And Wally was great. But the first day, Wally was so nervous that he blew a couple of lines here and there. And that's when I think he thought I was thinking, but I never for a second thought about firing him. At one point, he comes up to me and he says, I'm not Sicilian. I'm not really Sicilian. And I said, you know what, Wally? Vicini talks exactly like you. The way you talk, that's the way Vicini talks. And then he felt comfortable and he was able to do it. And to this day, I don't think a day goes by where people don't yell at him, say inconceivable. They yell out at him.
The other lead in the movie, Mandy Patinkin, as Inigo Montoya.
Right. Well, Mandy is one of the great actors, of our time. You look at him, and I'd seen him on stage in Evita and Sunday in the Park with George. When you see him in Homeland, he's a brilliant actor, and he can do anything. And I had to find somebody who could do the Spanish accent, who could have that intensity, and also learn how to fence. He had not learned. He had to take fencing lessons, and he is so dedicated. He spent 8 months learning how to fence left-handed and right-handed, along with Carrie. Carrie learned as well, left-handed and right-handed.
Legend has it that during Billy Crystal's scene,
yes,
with Carol Kane, that you kept busting takes because you were laughing.
Yeah, we didn't get through too many. Because, see, Billy would ad-lib, That whole thing about the MLT, the mutton, lettuce, and tomato sandwich, that was all something...
That's not in the script?
Not in the script, no. And so he starts on, when the mutton is nice and lean, and the perky, I'm gone. I'm gone. So, yeah, no, I had to...
The word is you had to leave.
I had to leave, yeah. I had to leave the set.
Any obstacles during production that slowed things down? Any changes you had to make?
Smooth as silk. No,
is it ever smooth as silk?
No. Listen, we had, the first day of shooting, when we're on the stage, we're in the fire swamp. And the first thing we're doing is we're lighting Robin Wright on fire. And so that was hard to get all that. The shrieking eel was hard to figure out how to do that. With the rodent of unusual size, this was my favorite thing. We had 2 rats. We had 2 guys in rat suits. There was one guy who did a kind of a sneaking kind of thing, and there was one guy who scurried real fast. And so we had this moment where I wanted the guy to go like this, and there's a guy, Anthony, who would be that guy. And I said, let's get Anthony. And I said, where's Anthony? He says, we'll do it with the other guy. I said, well, but Anthony's the scurrier. He's the guy who goes fast. Yeah, we'll do it together. I said, where's Anthony? He says, well, he's in jail. We're trying to bail him out. He got arrested. He's going through a divorce with his wife, and they owned a kennel, and he burned the kennel down. So that was a tough day with the rodent of unusual size.
Burned the kennel.
Yeah, that was it.
Where'd you shoot?
We shot all in England. The whole film was shot there. We shot at Shepperton Studios. We shot up north. We shot at Haddon Hall, in Derbyshire, in all around the countryside.
Any interference from the studio? Any executives giving you grief during it? Or were you left pretty much to make this as you saw fit?
No, because I was lucky. I had Norman Lear, who has always been, like a second father to me. And he was the one who was, helping finance the film. And I had done, Spinal Tap and The Sure Thing and Stand By Me with Norman, and so he put faith in me and let us make the movie. And we're way up in the northern countryside of London. We're at Haddon Hall. At this, the castle was built in 1086 for William the Conqueror's illegitimate son. And we're sitting there. Now 1,000 years later.
William the Conqueror had an illegitimate son?
I believe so.
Wow, that is scandalous.
There wasn't DNA in those days, so we're not sure. But anyway, there I am with Mandy Patinkin and Chris Guest, and the three of us are in this big banquet hall inside Haddon Hall, and we start singing a 3-part harmony to a "What's your name? Is it Mary or..." Don and Juan song, and I'm thinking, this is bizarre. Did William the Conqueror's illegitimate son ever think 3 guys were going to be singing that song in his dining room ever?
I've talked to 3 members of the cast briefly about The Princess Bride: Carrie, Billy Crystal, Carol Kane. All of them say that it was one of the great experiences of their lives. And then reading is this, you read about it, and you were having dinner most nights with Kat. You'd all eat together.
We hung out. We were all together. I mean, we were from, America. We had to go, and so we all hung out together. It was a great time.
Rob, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ben.